Good morning. Welcome to our latest episode of The Hot Seat. We are Sara and Cristina from One Woman Shop, which is a resource hub and membership community for female solo business owners. For those of you that don't know, each month on the blog, we have different monthly themes, and April's theme just happens to be collaboration and partnerships. So we thought it would be pretty cool to kick off. I think this is our first live of April, right? Our first hot seat, I should say. Yeah. Kick off with a little bit about our partnership here at One Woman Shop, as ironic as that is, and what we've learned from it.
Yes, we're total hypocrites. No, we are now a team that runs One Woman Shop. However, we still cater to One Woman Shop, so the name is still valid. So if anyone wants to challenge us, but it hasn't always been that way. So I would love your take on how we got where we are, because I know that we obviously share the same story because we were both there, but I imagine we have slightly different takes on how everything happened and where we were in our lives.
Yeah, so for like the quickest of quick overviews, in I think the summer of 2013, I was starting to freelance with the intention of leaving my job in the fall. And at that point, I stumbled somehow across CMR Strategies, which was Cristina's solo business.
Because Sara and I are so great at naming. So we have Frandina Strategies, we have CMR Strategies, and now my new blog is CristinaMroman.com.
Yes. So Cristina was doing some career coaching and stuff around building your business. And that's what attracted me to, I think it was some sort of worksheet, but then I got on a call with you. And so that's kind of what my initial preview of Cristina was. But soon after that, she launched One Woman Shop. And that's what like totally caught my eye. I was all about it. I was like, this mission is awesome. I want to be part of this community. And so I started, I think I just kind of cold emailed you, or you had sent out some sort of survey, and I sent a ridiculously long response that probably
Yes.
wasn't warranted. And from there, we just kind of went back and forth, and it really kind of organically grew, which is awesome.
Yeah, which we think we both will talk about the gradualness of our partnership and how that's worked really well for us. Also, if you hear that zapping sound, there's these little they look like tennis rackets, but they're mosquito killers. So people just walk around the co-working space zapping mosquitoes.
Nice.
So the shortest version I think would be met online, have a partnership.
Yes.
We basically online dated. But from my perspective, I had just been laid off and I started my own business. I was doing CMR strategies, so digital marketing consulting with small businesses. And I thought to myself, I am loving running my own business, but I'm finding it very overwhelming, isolating. And so I was like, there's got to be something I can do. And so instead of finding something, I poked around and I was like, I'll create it, because we believe in creating what you need, which is also a blog post on the site that Sara just wrote. So I definitely needed a community, and so I started creating it. And then I talked to Sara, and I remember being like, wow, she's so thorough. Those awesome responses on that survey, and then being like, wow, I think you're the person who seems to most value the community in terms of the value itself, but also in terms of the pricing. You seemed the most willing to kind of invest in something that you thought was awesome, and I loved that. And so I respected that about you. Never did that, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
And so basically, I'll go into the next steps, how it started. So basically, Sara and I started working together more. She has a copywriting background, and so that was an area I like writing, but definitely not my biggest strength. So she started doing some editing for the site, and then kind of grew in, and I basically approached her and said, I love your work. I find you extremely reliable and talented, which is a really hard combination to find sometimes. And then you started sharing in on the business, but we weren't official partners. And then the next step was making it official.
Yeah, it is. You know, if we had tried to plan it out, we couldn't have made it happen the way it did.
Mm-hmm.
It just gradually got a little more and more official. But two things that really stuck out for me were, A, you just said you couldn't find the community that you wanted, so you built it. For me, it was that I knew I wanted that community, and when I saw it already existed, I was like, I'm not going to try to build it. I'm going to see how I can join it. And then the second part is, it still is amazing to me how even at the beginning you let me into your business. So I don't think it could have evolved the way it did if you hadn't given me full autonomy over some stuff and just kind of invited me in and let me do some stuff to really get a feel for it and see what could emerge. So I think that's a huge part of it, because letting go of control is really hard when you start something.
We're gonna have so many feels on this, blah, all of the feels. That is really nice of you to say. I really appreciate that, because I do not feel like my strength is letting go of control. But I feel like this is just gonna be a compliment session back and forth. But I think that for me, I felt very protective of this community. And I wasn't willing to give it up for just anyone. I heard it as soon as I said it. I heard that. Clearly we're very professional on Blab. No, but I wasn't willing to let just anyone in to be a partner. That's a huge move. And so, yeah, I think that we both didn't push it, but we are both very open to seeing how it progressed.
And we both, I think, a huge part of it was that you were also leaving to start your 3-month digital nomad adventure. And so there was that part of you that was like, maybe I do need somebody. And I was like, hey, I'm here, let's do this. And then it just perfectly progressed.
Yeah. And so I would say on the plus side, which is the vast majority of it, I look at one woman shop today and I'm like, holy crap, like this could never have been this amazing if it were just me. On the negative side, I think I'm a little codependent. And now, like, sometimes I'll send Sarah an email, be like, I don't know what to say. And then I'm like, okay, if I was running the business by myself, would I have been capable of writing this email without second guessing? And so I would say that is a potential pitfall of business partnerships is codependency.
Yeah, so that's a great transition into some of the stuff that we've witnessed and learned being a partnership. So yeah, that codependency, I don't even think we realized it right away. It took a little while before we got to this point where we both would kind of run stuff by each other, no matter what it was, big or small, before moving forward on it. And it wasn't until we had way more stuff on our plates and way more moving parts that we realized what a detriment that could be. And so it's the codependency, and it's the so Cristina just wrote a post on the site about the lessons learned, which is perfect timing, where the first lesson is to work together but divide and conquer as well. So a lot of that comes from actually defining your roles and understanding what each other is going to take on, and understanding when codependency is important, and being there for each other in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think on the pro side of, we won't call it codependency because it has such a negative connotation, but the times where we've seen it really shine is when we have had to do brainstorming. That's a time where being together, I mean on video, has done wonders. So we were just talking about a product launch and we didn't really know where to start. So I was like, you know what, let's sit down and I'll ask you a ton of questions. You ask me a ton of questions, and we'll just kind of basically be our own beta test. And so that was really helpful. And so I definitely think brainstorming is a huge time when working together.
Yeah, it's a lot of what you can get out of a business coach or a mastermind or an accountability buddy you get from having a partner, especially if you come at it with different strengths. Because I think you have the ability to think a little bit more outside the box, where I'm like super type A, detail oriented. And once I zone in on something, I have trouble looking outside the box. So coming at it with different perspectives is really important. And brainstorm sessions are for sure the perfect place for that.
Yeah. Well, then I would say on the opposite side, there are some times where we'll go back to that example of an email. I write an email or Sarah writes an email and we send it to each other to look over. And probably, I would say 99.9% of the time, one of us has feedback and we make the email slightly better. However, going back, there's a lot of debate over the saying done is better than perfect. But I think that sometimes settling for 95% perfection instead of 100% perfection and saving the time instead of going back and forth, that's still a work in progress for us, but I think it's important.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing with all of this, is if you check back in with us 6 months later, we'll have an entirely different set of lessons learned. So partnership, just like solopreneurship, is like this never-ending lesson, but it is a completely different beast than working on your own. So
definitely.
We'll definitely, like, right now we're kind of getting into the lessons based on stuff we've had happen, but clearly we'll share that there's a lot of positives.
Oh, for sure. No, I would say, going back to that work together, but divide and conquer too. Like, we have harnessed the power of working together. And when we look at things like the Solopreneur Sanity Handbook, that would never, and we even wrote about it on the site, that would never have been what it is if I hadn't come with my old productivity e-course, you hadn't come with your Solopreneur Sanity outlines, and we put it together and had a 94-page handbook. And I got in the plug for Solopreneur Sanity.
Well, and even thinking about the Solopreneur Success Bundle, so one of us might have been able to pull that together by ourselves with a ton of lead time. But when I think about all of the moving parts of that, there's no way it could have been what it was, because I wouldn't have been able to do all of the outreach you did to build up the affiliates and the partnerships, whereas I was behind the scenes kind of pulling the actual logistics together and working with the contributors. So, and then there were a lot of aspects we worked on together, the marketing of it and writing the emails and stuff like that. So when you look at it's like a huge example where clearly there's a ton of moving parts. So it's good to divide and conquer, but you can find that balance on smaller projects too.
It's more like I wouldn't say it's just an even balance. It's more like a seesaw where you're like constantly, like you just said, you're like constantly in flux and you're constantly trying to find the balance. Which is an exciting challenge.
Absolutely. So I'd like to hear what your next lesson is, because I know you have some pretty good examples for this.
Yeah, so my next thing that I wrote in the post was learn when to take a stand and when not to. So I made this joke to Sarah yesterday. We were working on the 100 best sites, and I was saying, working just this one project is exactly my point when I say learn when to take a stand and when not to. We basically have 100 example, or well over 100 examples of kind of the, okay, what do you think? What do I think? Okay, how much do I care? How much do you care? Do you care more than I care? Okay, well, if you really care, then we're going to default to your opinion. Okay, and so it's like this back and forth. And so we find that in a lot of different areas of business. But do you have any examples?
I think that's a really great example, because the question that we keep saying is, well, how strong is your opinion? So if we're going through all of these sites that were nominated, and because we have well over 100, we have to eliminate some. So we're rating them based on certain criteria we've drawn out and giving them a 1 to 5 rating. Well, if we're giving a 3, that's right in the middle, not really helpful, unless there's a really solid reason. But usually it's, well, I just don't have a strong opinion, so if you do, I want to defer to you on this one. So I think that's a really important thing to be able to do, because I think it's in, just to get our big magic reference in, of course, where she says, like, you have to kind of choose the hills you want to die on, which is a really, really strong analogy. But it is important to be like, okay, you know what, this, in the grand scheme of things, does not make that much of a difference to me. Whereas, maybe I will go wild over the use of an Oxford comma, even though it's a small thing, but I have a really strong opinion on it. So It's again, just a constant balance.
Yeah. Well, and another example, I had drafted, so Sarah and I go back and forth drafting the emails that go out to our whole list. And I had drafted part of the email and I sent it and I was all, yeah. And Sarah was like, it just feels too shameless. And so that was like, I would think that was you taking a stand, being like, I think this is too shameless. And me being like, I said, which we were going to talk about as well, I was like, that sucks. I'm disappointed because I felt really proud of it. But okay, like your strong opinion that it's too shameless trumps my whatever emotion.
Well, and so that was actually, it's kind of a small example, but that was a really big thing because I knew you were really proud of it and I knew you really liked it. So I tried really hard. I tried really hard to make it work in a way that I was comfortable with. And I couldn't get myself there. So it was, it's not just one of us being like, well, I just don't like it or I just don't want this. We're usually also still trying to find a way to make it work where we can both be happy, but sometimes that just can't work out.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like all these points are so tied together because I like want to lead into the other ones. But I was just going to say to this point of learning when to take a stand. I said in the post, I was like, it's really, I think one of the biggest benefits of a partnership is you learn so much about yourself. I'm like, I'm going to be the best girlfriend ever. And so basically I said in the post, you need to know where you stand. So if I'm like, I'm a 10 on this. I feel so insanely strongly. And then I think about it more like maybe I'm actually an 8. But if I tell Sarah, I am a 9 on this, I feel so incredibly strongly. And she's like, I don't care. Then that's probably not a good partnership, which doesn't happen between us. But if that is happening, if you have a partnership and that is happening where you're basically saying very vocally, this is extremely important to me, and the other person isn't taking it seriously, that's a really big red flag in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is very much like a personal relationship. So we can make a ton of analogies to that for sure. But yeah, let's go on to the next one.
Cool. Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm going to kind of skip around a little if that's okay.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to sharing your opinions is sharing your feelings. So there's really strong opinions and then there's really strong feelings. And so there are some days where I think, one of the things that I definitely want to talk about is kind of the ebbs and flows. Like we both have periods where we just get kind of down or we're just not motivated. We're just not feeling it or something's going on. And then we have periods of like super high energy. They don't happen at the same time. And so we often come to the table with just different attitudes. And one of the ways that shows up is, I might be feeling something in particular relating to a situation that we're encountering, but I have to know when to let those feelings in and when it's just me and sharing them is not going to actually help the situation. Yeah. That was a really long way to get to that point.
No, I like it. Can you, though, clarify, like give any tangible takeaways about when to know when to share your emotions and when not to?
Well, so internally, it's really about, is this going to nag at me unless I say something to the point where it will actually just be worse when I do say something? Then I think it's important to just kind of bring it to the table right away. Another time is when I feel like our expectations of something might be really off and it's important to get on the same page now before it goes further. So hopefully those two examples are helpful.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get in our Rising Strong reference in two different ways. So we love the book Rising Strong by Brene Brown. So she talks about chandeliering, which is basically, it's a medical term when someone's in so much pain that when you touch it, they like basically jump and hit the chandelier. And so she talks about how that can happen from an emotional perspective where basically you hold it in, and then you explode. And so definitely that is not effective in a partnership, obviously, or in any kind of relationship. So avoiding chandeliering. And then I feel like I had another Rising Strong reference. But basically what I ask myself is, can I get over this? If I can get over it without talking it out, then that's it. There's multiple parts to this. Then that's one approach. But if it's something that I know will continue to come up again, then I think it's important to bring up. But if it's a one-time fleeting thing, that's when I would be like, no, Cristina, you need to shut it down. And not in an unhealthy way, just in a, you know what, you can let this go. And then I mentioned Frozen, and you didn't like it.
I have a very strong opinion on getting let it go stuck into people's heads, including my own. So
she's mad at me for days not to.
No, and a huge part of partnerships is communication. And one thing that makes it even more challenging sometimes is that we're not in person. We're not sitting across the table from each other. We've learned very well how to pick up on cues via video chat. But still, when you're communicating through GChat for 70% of the time or 50% of the time, whatever it is, you have to be really deliberate in your communication. And that's why it's important to think about things kind of before you respond. And we've caught ourselves where I know something doesn't come across well in a GChat, or we can read each other's cues on a video call and know it's time for a break. So it's that's just kind of this other layer to being able to pick up on the nuances and knowing when to communicate and how to communicate.
Yeah. Well, I would say additionally, I think it's this is another point from the post, is say what you mean and accept the other person at face value. So the ideal is we don't get to the point where, we've talked about like our voices shift a little bit, or there's just like a shift in body language and it means I'm burnt out or Sarah's burnt out. So the ideal is before those things start popping up, we can basically say, listen, I need a break. And we know at this point, if I say I need a break, it's because I need a break. It's not because I'm just going to like screw around. And so, but the other point about saying what you mean and taking the person at face value is, so I'll say sometimes, I don't care, or I don't have a strong opinion. And I am very careful to not say, I don't even care, in the way that like girlfriends often do. I feel like if their significant other's like, I don't even care. And then you're mad. I think it's extremely important in a partnership to say, if you don't care, it genuinely has to mean I don't care. Or, I'm sure there's a more effective way to communicate I don't care.
Well, and often when you say that, like it's not like that, I just don't care. It's I don't care, as in I don't have a strong opinion, but if you need something on this, I'm here to help or bounce ideas off of or XYZ. So it's knowing that, like, I think even in your personal relationships, sometimes it's like, well, I want to control over this, so I don't want necessarily for you to care or have a strong opinion, but it would be nice to know that you care, like that weird difference between caring and caring.
Guys are going to be like, what?
Right, but you find that in a partnership where it's like, you know what, I truly do not have a pull to give you an answer on this, or I don't lean one way or the other, but I care about, how you handle it, and I want to be there for you if you need anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll say to you sometimes, I can rustle up an opinion. Like I can come up with something. I mean, why would I take the time to come up with an opinion if you have a strong one? So I'll default to you. But if I need a strong opinion, I can find one. Really good at finding opinions. I think, and then definitely taking it face value. So if somebody says, I'm being straightforward with you, being like, okay, I accept that. But then you have to have that trust. You can't basically just start walking around taking everyone at face value if you don't have any trust established. So I would say that it's a pretty important first part.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of important. So I mentioned that like our first outreach was in 2013, but I wouldn't say we started really consistently working together on a day-to-day basis until the beginning of might have been 2015.
Like, some in 2014.
Yeah, but like not at the depth we are now, right? So we became an official partnership in April of 2015. So actually it's almost our partnership anniversary. So
there'll be some Starbucks exchange.
So it took, but just to say that it took, over a year of really in-depth partnership to figure that out in almost 3 years of knowing each other. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of back and forth to figure these things out. And we still have our days where I'll say something and be like, holy crap, that came across wrong. Or you'll say something and I'll be like, I know she probably didn't mean this, but I'm taking it wrong.
Which is actually the other Rising Strong reference that I was thinking of, which is we started using the story I'm telling myself. And so we've used that pretty effectively, I would say, where I'll be like, I think we both used it. So coming to Sarah coming to me and being like, the story I'm telling myself is that this is what's happening. We actually have a really interesting example of this. I don't know if you want to get into it. Huffington Post.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good reminder there. It's funny because the way that we're saying like, oh, the story I'm telling myself is we're kind of saying it, I don't know, like it's a corny thing, but it works. Like it's unbelievable. So we submitted our first post. We were invited to be contributors on the Huffington Post in the fall. And it took us a little while to get ourselves moving. So we submitted our first post this spring. And when it did get posted, there was a mistake in it. So we didn't start promoting it. We reached out to them and they fixed it, but they only fixed part of it. So it was still like this, like, oh, it's not perfect. We just don't want to necessarily put it out there. But what happened was they weren't responding and things weren't kind of moving. But I was really excited. It was a post I had written, and I just was like so excited that, a couple months ago we shared that we were going to be contributors, and we weren't able to really share anything since then. But I had like this level of excitement that I was not feeling from Cristina. And this is one where I did kind of let it go on for probably longer than I should have. But it wasn't until I just had I need to have a really honest conversation about this, because it's something that's just kind of sitting in the back of my mind, where the story I'm telling myself is that because this was a post I wrote, you don't care as much. And that wasn't the issue, but it was like I still needed to express that and hear her tell me that wasn't the issue.
Yeah. Was there more?
No, I mean.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that, and it was so funny. As soon as she said that, I was like, wow, that literally never occurred to me. And so I think it was such a good exercise in being like, we do create these stories in our heads, and it's not like we're not crazy, but we just kind of create these things and we fill in the blanks with information we don't have, right? And so she said that, and I was like, wow, that's not at all what I was thinking. I'm glad you said that, so I can clarify. No. And for me, there was a bunch of reasons. It was basically just that the Huffington Post doesn't actually promote your work. And so I was like, I want to promote guest posts that are also promoting us. So.
But really going back to like, we do fill in those gaps, and it's not fair to the other person when we are assuming their stance or their attitude. And this is in life, but especially in a partnership, where it wasn't fair for me to think that, or to hold that against you, that like, this is what you must be thinking. But I couldn't know until I actually asked you. And then I think I truly did know that wasn't really it, but you kind of work things up in your mind.
Yeah. And sometimes you just need that vocal reassurance. And also, as my father taught me, assuming makes an ass of you and me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I just wanted to jump over to one of the last things that was in the post, but then I think we go back to the second one. But we wrote no one to table stuff and walk away. And so just taking it back real quick to that idea of there have been times where we couldn't come to any kind of conclusion. I think maybe when we weren't even sure how we felt, so we couldn't successfully, not argue, but we couldn't make our points. And we basically had to say, you know what, this cannot be done today. This maybe can't be done this week. Maybe it's because we're tired. Maybe it's not at all because of our emotions. Maybe it really is the issue. at hand. Sorry.
Did you just wink at someone?
No.
Hey.
There's no one in this room. There's just people in the other room. It gets noisy. So do you have anything to add into that?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is because we're driven by the things on our to-do list, and we want to knock stuff off our to-do list, and we want to complete things. And so sometimes we get to something and we just want to move forward on it, or we want to make a decision, but it's clearly not going to happen for whatever reason. But the biggest thing is knowing that just because we're not doing it or talking about it or making a decision that day doesn't mean we can't come back to it, and that it will pop up again, when it's meant to, or when we schedule a Google Calendar reminder to revisit it. But that's a big part of it, is knowing that just because we're not solving something right away, knowing that it's not just going to disappear.
Which we talked about on another blog. More in depth. Yeah, definitely. It's still there. It's still
Yes.
there on the to-do list. I feel like the default to each person's expertise. I feel like you can speak really well to this if you want to.
Yeah, so I think, we kind of touched upon it earlier. The Solopreneur Success Bundle is a really great example of when it's really important just to default to each person's expertise, because we're going to have a ton of great posts on the blog this month about partnerships. So definitely check back. But one of the things that one of our contributors wrote that makes a great partnership that I completely agree with is that you do bring different strengths to the table. If we both had the exact same set of strengths, I don't necessarily think this would work as well as it does. It's important that we share viewpoints and attitudes, but in terms of your actual skill set, it's nice that I can rely on you for certain things and you can rely on me for certain things. So with the Solopreneur Success Bundle example, you love outreach and you are very good at it, whereas I really like organizing. So it was really great that I could I did a little outreach, but mostly to this confined group of contributors who were giving their products and stuff to the bundle. But then I just kind of worked behind the scenes and did the organization, whereas you really went hardcore for weeks on end on outreach. We needed both of those things to happen for that to be successful. But if we were both trying to do both things, it just would not have worked as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say, though, that the caveat in this, because we have to say caveat, was just because it's not your area of expertise and it is the other person's area of expertise doesn't mean that you can't have some kind of opinion. So with copy, so that's the example I always think of. So Sarah's background is, again, in copywriting, and but I also like words. I have the best words.
Stop.
And so there are times when I have a strong opinion about style or word choice, whatever. And so just because it's her area of expertise doesn't mean I can't have any opinion. So definitely, yeah.
And knowing that, just because I'm a copywriter, for a while I was writing all of the emails. And then at one point you stepped in, I don't know if it was just I couldn't get it done or what, and you wrote one, and I was like, holy crap, like she's a great writer, and it's nice to have her voice in here. So also knowing that maybe the other person, even if it's not like the thing they want to do all the time or the thing they're the best at, it is nice to have that variation. And now I think it's like a great blend between us with our voices and our emails, and I love that about it.
And to that point, you kind of indirectly said it, is that your business partner or your business coach, whatever, these people are in your life to kind of push you forward. And so I don't have to say, you know what, Sarah's got the copy, great, that's taken care of. I can say, I'm going to learn a lot from Sarah about copy. And, maybe actually, I will say on my new personal blog, I've been using a lot of the style choices from One Woman Shop. I'll like the parentheses and stuff, I write them and I'm like, oh, Sarah. This stuff helps you in the rest of your life, friends.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, so then I think there's an interesting dynamic that I actually heard this on a podcast a little while ago, where it was like, sure, if you want a partner and if you want everything to take 5 times longer than it would take if you're doing it by yourself, then yeah, start a partnership. And I was just kind of laughing because there are certain times where you have to know that things will take longer because there's 2 people, you have 2 points of view, you want to work together on something, so you're waiting until you're both available or you're both really ready for it. But I'd say 90% of the time, it's better to have 2 people when you're working on something of this scale, as opposed to being something that actually makes it take longer or makes it harder. But I laughed so hard because there are certain things that have come up where I'm just like, yeah, we could have done this a lot faster by ourselves.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, just even this blab, for example, like you have said before, you're like, I don't want to sit on the blab by myself and talk. I probably would enjoy it slightly more than you, but it's still, I mean, just the back and forth dynamic, like that's partnership in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, it's funny because when your Wi-Fi is out and I'm kind of here alone, I'm just like, yeah, but people actually do host labs by themselves. This is not abnormal, but I'm just like, I got to get out of here. How do I get out of here?
There's a little X in the corner.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to talk about one thing that it wasn't on our original list of things to talk about, but I was thinking about it this morning, about finding the balance of blending professional and personal. And so I think it's going to be extremely different for each partnership. I have thoughts, but do you have any immediate reaction to that?
I think that I've seen partnerships where it's sisters or it's a brother and sister. They clearly know each other very well on a personal level. I've seen partnerships where it's best friends. I think we are actually pretty abnormal in the way that we came together and the fact that we have not met in person. But I still find that we do know enough about each other personally to understand sometimes where we're coming from or what's going on. And it's important not to keep that stuff in the dark when it does clearly affect your work. But we don't have that obligation that you would feel to a family member or somebody that you see every single day of the week and you have other dealings with, whatever they might be. But yeah, I definitely want to hear your take on this.
Yeah, well, I do have experience running a business with my sister. And one of our biggest challenges was that we found that time together would always start defaulting to business. And so we had to set time where we weren't allowed to talk about business. And obviously that's not a challenge for you and I because of circumstances. But I don't know, I guess I would just say, I think I've said this to you before, if running this business isn't fun and enjoyable, like, what's the point? Like, of course it's, the value and the money and all of that stuff. But if it's not an enjoyable process, we could be working for the man or the woman. And so basically I always think like Sara shares with me about Pete, her husband, and about like his like insane 10-10 game. And so, and I share, about my dates. But I would say that we have, we don't go like full in depth. I would say the focus is always professional, but we've also, I don't know. It's hard to describe.
It is, because it's funny to be like, especially because we probably, I spend 50% of my work week on video calls with you. And so I feel like I know you really well, even though we do keep most of our conversations work related. Fortunately for us, we do really fun work. And so it's not like when we're talking about work, it's like, oh, we got to put our professional hats on. We kind of have a lot of fun with it. But I think we do bring a good blend of personal stuff to the table, and it makes it fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even just a little example, like this morning, I was like, oh my gosh, have you ever had zotes, which is like zucchini oats? Like so random, but that's something you would say to your coworker. And it's just like, this is what's happening in my life. I'm literally eating zotes right now. And so why not share? And so, yeah, just sharing like fun tidbits about our lives, I think. And we make a lot of
Or you watching me eat edamame and eating the entire thing instead of just
She was eating edamame and just like put the whole entire thing in her mouth. Like, no, you're not supposed to eat the shell.
So you might have to teach me how to eat zoats as well.
I will. Yeah, but just kind of just thinking about how you would be in a fun, low-key office. I feel like that's where our balance has landed.
Yeah, no, and I think it is really important to bring both to the table, but know when you're taking one or the other too far. Mm-hmm. But it is interesting to see the difference between our partnership and other partnerships too, because there are just no two the same, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely think like being aware of if you are an oversharer and you can kind of pick up on those cues that your business partner is uncomfortable, probably important to take into consideration.
Absolutely.
I only overshare like half the time.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't touch upon is really the making of our formal partnership. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to go too far into this. We did form an actual LLC and work with a lawyer to build an operating agreement. But when it came to the partnership, a lot of the guidelines and promises we put in place were kind of just like this is what I expect of you, this is what you expect of me. And a lot of it is just making sure you're on the same page for certain situations, as opposed to having legalese over every exchange we ever have.
Right. Yeah, but I definitely think that having an exit strategy in place is really important, just in case, somebody, Jill said on our blog yesterday that Jill is one of our members, and we did a member spotlight with her, but she was saying that, everyone always has the best, well, for the most part, people have the best of intentions, but you never know how things will change. And it could end up being that Sarah and I are in very different places in 3 years. And so just having that legal protection, but then also just having the personal aspect of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think we could get bogged down in the legal side of things. But it's important to have that foundation in place. And we'd clearly be happy to answer any questions that people have based on that. But it is about recognizing the things that are going to be most important and just making sure we're covering those.
Yeah. Sometimes I whip out the contract in the middle of the day. I'm like, well, according to section 2.83, you owed me.
You watched the Big Bang Theory, the roommate agreement. Well, according to section 3.A.
Oh, really? I've never seen it. Awesome. Nerd alert. I'm not wearing glasses today, though.
Oh, and today's my last day.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Getting LASIK. So I just pulled out the last paragraph of the post.
Yeah, let's share.
I said, even the best partnerships come with challenges, but hey, we're solopreneurs. Loving challenges is in our blood. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that successfully navigating a partnership can make you a better person in all areas of your life. It makes you more self-aware, more willing to compromise, and propels you forward as a business owner. And I should have said also as a human being. Anything to add to that?
No, I think that's it's a perfect blend of being more aware of where I'm coming from, knowing how to compromise, and just learning how we can be better people. It is just everyday lessons that we can apply to so many aspects of life.
Yay! Thanks for joining us, everyone, to hear about our lovely partnership.
Yes, we will be back next week, same time, same place, 11 a.m. Eastern on Blab, and we have a special guest next week, so we're excited for that one.
Yes, we'll see you guys next week.
Have a good day.